Okay, here we go. Chapter 10, ninth commandment. Talk a lot, pick a little more. Cheep, 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 talk a lot, pick a little more. Music man and all the ladies gathering in the town square talking about people, gossiping. It's quite a cool musical, love it. But that song walks right into the ninth commandment. You shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. So what does false witness have to do with their neighbors and the word bearing? The whole thing goes back to all the 9 commandments we've talked about so far. It's reflecting the character of God. And God, everything in the New Testament, you see a lot, 400 sometimes you see in the Bible, the word witness becoming such a big deal. Witnessing. Back then they didn't have their lawyers and judges, which is probably a good thing. I mean, they had judges. But a lot of their business dealings, they had an abundance of witnesses, and people were saying, yes, we witness this. We have seen this. We all agree that this is what happened. So there's some sayings that I think some of them are really better than others. Let me just tell you a few of them. May no portion of evil be attached to the words I say. And Jonathan Swift said, what some invent, the rest enlarge. I like this one. Gossip is the art of saying nothing in a way that leaves practically nothing unsaid. Gossip is always a personal confession, either of malice or imbecility. The only time people dislike gossip is when you gossip about them. Will Rogers has a lot of cool quotes. Just look up Will Rogers quotes and you can be giggling all day. But another one was, a rumor without a leg to stand on will get around some other way. But I think probably the best one is this one of Will Rogers. Live in such a way that you would not be ashamed to sell your parrot to the town gossip. In other words, live a life that witnesses who you believe in. So let's just break that down. You shall not bear false witness. Now think about what it means to bear something. Now I can pick up backpack, carry it somewhere, but I have to be careful now with the shoulder replacement that I don't put too much weight on there, or I'm going to be bearing something, bearing it with effort. It takes work. It's something that I have to work at. That's what bear means. So basically saying you shall not work at being a witness that is not true against the people that you're around, the people that you live with, your neighbor. So it's really interesting when we look at it. 3 of the 10 commandments deal with our tongue and the inappropriateness of our tongue. So this commandment was basically something that the Old Testament was really focused on. It protected the reputation from libel by others. You had to have a bunch of witnesses to prove anything. And it was a justice system that was set up on the guilt based on the witnesses, the witness of the witnesses, the people that stood up and said, we saw this, we agree to this, we understand this, this is what we're all unified against. So false is something that's not true. And in the Latin, the word false means to fraud. So the witness is someone who saw an event and witnessed and knew what happened. So the law required 2 or 3 witnesses to confirm wrongdoing, and that was to prevent false accusations. And it's really interesting because when we get into the New Testament, a lot of what Jesus' trials were all based on false witnesses. So Ron Meal of the Tender Commandment book, really interesting saying, whenever you say something to an individual or about an individual that is less than what God would say to that individual, you're bearing a false witness. When you say something different than what God would say about someone, then you're bearing false witness. So in Zechariah 8:16 it says, these are the things you are to do. Okay, these are to do. Speak the truth to each other and render true and sound judgments in your courts. That's built on trust. That's built on the truth, which goes back to the character of God, is truth. Proverbs 6:16 through 19, there are 6 things the Lord hates, 7 that are detestable to him. Haughty eyes, a lying tongue, hands that shed innocent blood, a heart that devises wicked schemes, feet that are quick to rush into evil, a false witness who pours out lies, and a person who stirs up conflict in the community. We could have a lesson for the rest of the time on this passage in Proverbs, because it's a sequence. It's a sequence of having a lack of integrity. So a proud look, haughty eyes, someone who thinks of themselves better than anyone else. And when you choose to think of yourself better than other people, there becomes a sequence that you establish to make yourself better than others. A lying tongue is right following that. If I'm better than you, I'm going to say whatever I want about you to make me look better than you, whether it's true or not. I have that power now over you because I am proud and I am haughty and I am the most important thing. And with an attitude like that, the shedding of innocent blood there's no conscience that it's wrong, because I am more important than you and I will lie to get what I want. And those are the hearts that devise evil and wicked schemes. They're only based on what makes them look better with their haughtiness, with their proud looks. And then feet that are quick to rush into evil. When you start going down a slope of, I'm not telling the truth, I'm lying about people, everything else seems easily possible, because you've totally lost respect for anyone by your haughty look, by your lying tongue, by shedding innocent blood. People aren't important anymore. You are the only one important. But then the last one, I think, is probably to me the most, challenging maybe. Men who stir up dissension above the others. You think about it, our culture loves to stir up dissension. I can't even say it. We have a news people that love to cast statements to cause dissension. We have cultural issues based on people that don't like somebody else, and they're going to cause problems among people. We have misunderstandings, and people take and jump on it, and then you stir up dissension among the brothers. And it's one of those things that they were saying that God hates. God hates it when people look at other people to cause problems. And it's more exciting that way. A pure life is a dull life and a boring life to a lot of people, so therefore let's make up something. Our prisons are full of people who were falsely accused, but there was enough people jumping on the bandwagon that the truth could not come out. And all the riots and all the kind of things we've seen lately in our culture, it's stirring up dissension about the brothers. We know churches who split because some of the people didn't like some of the other people, and they didn't want this colored carpet or that colored hymn book, and it caused enough dissension within the church that they split. That has become sometimes common. When I was in college, there was and I'm not picking on Baptists because I'm not, but I went to college. There was the First Baptist, there was a Southern Baptist church, and there was a Second Baptist, and then there was a Central Baptist. And I'm not saying they all started as one and moved their separate ways, but a lot of times that's what happens, is you have somebody doesn't agree with somebody, so you split the church because we're going to do it right. It's the dissension. And a lot of it is because of misunderstandings and not taking the time to sit down and listen to the other side of the story. There's always two sides of the story, and that's why in a crowd of witnesses and a group of people, if you're listening to the facts, things come out because of what people have witnessed. Witnessing in the Old Testament was such a prevalent thing. I'm just going to leap into Ruth, if I can go back and find it. Back here. When Boaz, in chapter 4, when Boaz was going to seal the deal with Ruth, he did it in a very interesting way. And he says, this was the culture. He said a relative took his off his sandal, and Boaz said, I'm in chapter 4, verse 9, said to the elders and all the people, you are witnesses this day that I have bought all that was Elimelech's and all that was Chilian's and Mahlon's from the hand of Naomi. Moreover, Ruth the Moabitess, the widow of Mahlon, I have acquired as my wife. You are witnesses this day. That's what they did. And then the people responded, we are witnesses. Even in Christ's day, after Christ resurrected, there were so many people who were eyewitnesses to who Jesus was and that he rose from the dead that they couldn't refute that they couldn't refute that a magnificent thing had happened, because there was too many people that were saying, no, we saw it, we saw it, we saw it, we saw it. That crowd of witnesses holds great integrity. So lying is an epidemic, and what I mean by that is an epidemic starts something very simple and then grows to where you almost can't control it. And I like to watch Judge Judy, because I think, I've never done anything that dumb. But she talks about, if you tell the truth, you don't have to remember anything. And she'll get a child up on stage who obviously the mother had told him exactly what to say, and the child gets up on stage and she starts talking to him, and it's not long before the child is going back to what actually happened, because the way it's presented. If you lie, you have to remember the lie you told, and then you have to remember the lie you told to cover up the lie you told, and then you have to remember the other 3 lies, and then you have to make something else up. Just much easier to tell the truth. But when we start lying, it becomes that epidemic. We can't almost stop it because we have to keep covering up for the problems we had. So often we lie to protect our image, our vanity, our self-esteem. But actually, when you think about it, our self-esteem is lowered when we tell a lie. So we're lying to ourselves. And when we lie, that what we thought was truth, or we're lying to ourselves that there won't be consequences. So it kind of boils down to truth is a foundation that we all live on, and when that cracks, we can't trust the truth. The news nowadays, the fake news, all these reports and how they can make something appear to be truthful, it's really interesting. Because if television media used to, I don't know if they still do, I think they still do, it had a 3 to 5 second delay, so if something was said, or they could cut it out. How much different would our response to life be if we had a delay time in our speech to others? Okay, now think about that. You go to say something and you say something, and a lot of times it's like, I should have thought that out. Well, what if we lived with a speech delay to where we really thought about what we said before we said it? Because sometimes the things we say are bearing false truths. And I know that's an oxymoron. But it's not the truth, but we somehow think it could be, or we're trying to get people to see our view, and our view maybe not be the truth. But if we think about it long enough, we'll come back around to where, okay, if I say that, I won't be misunderstood. If I say that, I'm not in the emotional moment. A lot of times just waiting and thinking about what we're going to say helps us maintain our integrity of truth. There's somewhere in the Bible it talks about don't let the sun go down on your wrath. And people say don't go to bed angry. Well, I say don't go to bed angry, but you don't need to talk about it. You need sometimes time to process. So don't try to solve the world's problems when you're emotionally charged. Sleep on it. Think about it. Have the ability to rephrase things in a calm manner after you've thought about it. Because you can't take back words that are spoken. And a lot of times when we're backed into a corner and someone's trying to confront us about something, we end up saying things we didn't mean to say, we didn't want to say, but we don't know what to say, and sometimes we just talk to fill the air. So God's response to cheap, talk a lot, pick a little more. Job 6:24 says, teach me and I will hold my tongue. Now if I go backwards, I'm going to read the kind of verse backwards. It's like, I will hold my tongue when I let you teach me. So if I'm going to hold my tongue on my own, it ain't going to work. But I can hold my tongue when I let God teach me how to hold my tongue. Job 15:3 talks about the unprofitable talk. And we've all been there where somebody just talks and talks and talks, and they're just filling up the air. It's not being beneficial to anybody. And they don't seem to stop. They're unprofitable talk. Psalms 34:13 says, keep your tongue from evil deceit. Keep your lips from evil. And I'm going to interject that's a good verse to say, but it starts in our heart. So if we reword that, keep your heart from evil, that will help keep your lips from evil, because it doesn't come out your lips without processing in your mind and in your heart. You'll hear somebody say something that is very inappropriate, and they will go, oh, I don't know where that came from. And it's like, yeah, I do. It came from your heart. You've been thinking it, and finally the filter just wasn't there and it popped out. So if we start in our mind and our heart, our words will have a better chance of being truthful, because God has taught us that. Proverbs 10:31 says, but a perverse tongue will be cut out. And then Proverbs 17:20, he who has a deceitful heart finds no good, and he who has a perverse tongue into evil. If our heart is good and pure, we will find good. If we have a pure tongue, we will not find evil. So if you just take those verses and kind of rearrange it, why do we lie? Why do we not tell the truth? Why do we bear false witness? Well, slander, gossip, flattery, insinuating things. A lot of it is that we feel better about ourselves, that we feel we have some power over somebody. I know something you don't know, I'm going to hold it over you. It's not loving your neighbor as yourself. It's not looking at the neighbor who you are bearing witness to and saying, is this going to make their day better, their life better, their faith walk better? When I look back at this in 24 hours, is my neighbor loved more by the words I'm saying? So just a quick question, because I'm asking questions and I guess nobody can answer me, but we spiritualize gossip, slander, lies, and false witness. We make it a spiritual thing. And I remember hearing people share on prayer requests. Okay, now I know not everybody does, but the prayer lines often became the gossip lines. And I don't want to tell you this, but I want you to pray for Ethel. She's having some real struggles, but don't tell anybody I said this, but just pray for her. And then you go on for 20 minutes telling all Ethel's problems. No, that's not the way we handle it. James 3, when the kids were little, they sang a song, Swallow Those Words. My friend Dale wrote it. Swallow those words, don't let them go. And it still talks about in the book of James in chapter 3, left a word for us to see about that tongue of yours. So often, out of one side of your tongue you praise people, out of the other side of the tongue you curse them. Just swallow your words. Don't let it come out your mouth. There's a filter there, kind of like the mask we used to wear. Stop it. Stop it before you say it. And how would your speech change if you could just gulp back those words and not spit them out? When I was used to help the kids in 4-H, taught them how to do presentations, and after every presentation they always ask, is there any questions? And that is the panic part of people's life, is when somebody asks a question you don't know the answer to. And I told the kids, never say, I don't know, because a lot of times they go, oh, I don't know, and it made them look kind of dumb. I say, when someone asks you a question you're not sure about, say, that's something I haven't thought about. I'll look into that. Thank you for bringing up that question. It changes it changes how they look, but it also changes what you think about. Do they care that they didn't have a clue about what to say? Our reaction to people oftentimes would be a lot better if we just said, let me think about that. Let me get back to you on that. I'm not sure what to say, so I'm not going to say anything till I've thought it out. That's one of those times in life where it's okay to just be okay with not having all the words. I'm going to close with 1 Timothy. I love this passage, and it's definitely talks to a lot of things in life, but I think it talks to our mouth too. So I think it's the NIV, doesn't matter, but now the purpose of the commandment is love from a pure heart. Purpose of this commandment is to love from a pure heart, from a good conscience, and from a sincere faith. And then he goes on to say, from which some have strayed, having tuned aside to idle talk or empty chatter, or just, one of the versions say, vain jangling, gossip, speculation, criticize. That's empty chatter. It's idle talk. It's not benefiting anyone. But I really like the way the Message talks about it. It says, the whole point of what we're urging is simply love. Love uncontaminated by self-interest and counterfeit faith, a life open to God. Those who fail to keep to this point soon wander off into dead ends of gossip. They set themselves up as experts on religious issues, but haven't the remotest idea of what they're holding forth with such imposing eloquence. Don't be a vain jangler. Don't just talk to talk. Because the purpose of being a believer and representing the integrity of God's character is love and a pure heart and a good conscience and a sincere face. It's not to cause disputes, to get people all riled up, to manipulate, to have power struggles over. So 4 things that our speech should reflect: honesty in speech, God's character, truth in all communication, avoid saying what isn't true, and avoid not saying what is true. There's times that you don't have to say everything you know, even though it's true. There's times to use wise discernment. And number 2, it's integrity. 3rd is confrontation. When you need to confront someone, you need to have honesty in speech, but you also have to know wisdom when to speak and when not to speak. And then I think that one of the more important ones is you set an example. You set an example of what integrity is as far as speech goes. It's what is important to speak, what is important to the words that I say, how important are they? How can I be an example of God's character when my words actually reflect everything that God's character stands against? So our character should be reflecting God's in our words, in how we take the effort to talk about our neighbor, how we witness, how we see what's happening in life, how we take that to the rest of the world, how we love our neighbor as ourselves, how we treat them in situations that are challenging. How would we want to be treated? Would we want the whole neighborhood to know everything we did? No. So treat other people, put yourself in that situation. Something happens, how would I want to be treated? How would I want the whole world to know what I've done, how I've done it? Don't bear witness to everything that happens in someone's life. Be a friend. Bear the character of God, who is forgiving and who raises people up, does not tear people down. Have a good one.